Ahead this morning on Face the State, one-on-one with Ohio Governor Mike DeWine.
Wherever you are in regard to abortion, this constitutional amendment just goes much, much too far.
From his opposition to the abortion and recreational marijuana ballot issues to his concerns over potential violence against Jews and Muslims in Ohio because of the Israel-Hamas war, to fighting violent crime and meeting the demands of growth and economic development, Governor Mike DeWine gives his viewpoint on some of the big issues in our state. Plus, faith leaders rally in support of Issue 1, why they and other supporters say reproductive health care and abortion rights should be guaranteed in the state constitution. Welcome to Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine expects voter turnout in Tuesday's election to be higher than average for an off-year election because of the high-profile ballot issues 1 and 2 on reproductive rights and abortion and recreational marijuana. As you've probably seen, the governor and first lady appear in a political ad opposing Issue 1, the constitutional amendment that would legalize abortion in the state. I sat down with him at the governor's residence in Bexley for a wide-ranging interview on several of the big issues affecting Ohioans. We started with his stance on Issue 1.
You know, Fran and I have never done an ad on a statewide issue before. I've stated my positions in the past, but we feel very, very strongly about this. I think whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, wherever you are in regard to abortion, this constitutional amendment just goes much, much too far. It really does two big things. First of all, it enshrines this in the Constitution, which means it cannot be changed except by another constitutional amendment. It's not just a law, it's in the Constitution. It will provide that abortion can occur at any point during the pregnancy. We have a law that we've had on the books for a number of years which outlaws what's called a partial birth abortion. This was developed by a doctor in Dayton. There were a number of those that were occurring. It's a very, very late-term abortion, babies delivered partially and killed and then finish the delivery. These were actually occurring in Ohio. So this amendment would negate that. It would override that. It would also override another law that we've had for a number of years, which is parental consent is needed in regard to an abortion when you're dealing with a minor. I think most Ohioans, the vast majority of Ohioans, don't believe that abortion should occur at any time. And I think the vast majority of Ohioans want parents to be involved if their daughter is making a very, very difficult and important decision in her life.
The ballot measure seems to be a pushback against the abortion ban that went into effect. Do you think that in any way that if the abortion law that was passed was maybe more measured, not as extreme as the opponents to it say, that we might not even be in a situation where there's a vote today?
You know, the only thing that's on the ballot is this, what I consider to be a very radical constitutional amendment. So voters are going to decide yes or no. They're going to put this in the Constitution. If we're able to defeat this, then the issue will be where do we go from here? And I believe that there is a spot where we can get to in regard to abortion. Now that this is all returned to the states, I think there's a place where Ohioans, at least the majority of Ohioans, can be comfortable. The vast majority of Ohioans, for example, clearly believe that there should be an exception for rape and incest. So I think that if we can defeat this, and we can continue this discussion, it's important for us to do everything we can to find a sweet spot where Ohioans are comfortable. I just don't think the majority of Ohioans are comfortable with abortion at any point during a pregnancy.
The other big issue, Issue 2 on the ballot regarding legalizing recreational marijuana use. Just where do you stand on that, Governor?
First of all, I think it's important when we talk about marijuana to recognize that we have medical marijuana now in the state of Ohio, and we can continue to expand that as medical science tells us that marijuana or a derivative of marijuana can be helpful to someone. Look, we want people to have the help that they need from a medical point of view. So we already have that in place in the state of Ohio. What this amendment would do is allow recreational use of marijuana. We've seen this in about half of the states, so we now have a real experience level. We know what will happen. And the things that will happen, that have happened in other states, I don't think are good. Number one, there'll be more people killed on the highways. We know that. That's occurred in every single state that has broadened the use of marijuana to include recreational. More accidents, more people killed, more people under the influence of marijuana. That's number one. Number two, there'll be more children, many times little toddlers, little kids, who end up in the emergency room because they ate a gummy bear or they ate a brownie that had marijuana in it. That will become perfectly legal, and we know when you talk to emergency room professionals in other states, that will happen. Those numbers will go up. The third thing I would say, it changes the culture. The law is a teacher. It sets the norms for society. So let's take a 15-year-old who's in the car with mom or dad. They're going to soccer practice, and the 15-year-old is seeing signs for marijuana. In Denver, for example, they have the green men. And every time you see a green man, you know that's where you can go buy marijuana. What's that 15-year-old think? Well, what she thinks or he thinks is, well, I know I can't do it until I'm 21, but it must be okay because the law says that it is okay. What we now know is a lot more than we knew 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. Young people who use marijuana, and when this has passed in other states, the underage use of marijuana also went up dramatically. And so what we know is the use of marijuana by a young person when the brain is still developing is many times can cause a serious loss of IQ, and it's a permanent loss. So these are things we didn't know many years ago. The final thing is this marijuana is a lot more potent than the marijuana of the 60s or 50s or the 70s, and you know it's just a lot more potent.
We know that there's still a lot of illegal marijuana use going on. Does the opportunity to regulate and then also the tax revenue at all come into the thoughts of maybe it's not such a bad thing to legalize?
Look, the tax revenue that we're going to get is going to be offset by additional crashes, additional work by the highway patrol and local police. It's going to be offset by all the social bad things that will occur because of it. It's not worth the price. It's just not. It's not worth doing.
A little later, Governor DeWine talks about his concerns over potential violence against Jews and Muslims in Ohio because of the Israel-Hamas war, dealing with violent crime, and meeting the demands of growth and economic development in our state. But next, support for Issue 1. Hear from those encouraging people to vote yes for the constitutional amendment on reproductive health care and abortion. Issue 1 has brought out many passionate voices for it and against it. You heard Governor DeWine's reasons for opposing it. This week, Columbus faith leaders laid out their reasons for supporting it. Leaders from 7 Columbus churches and organizations encouraged people to vote yes on the proposed constitutional amendment on reproductive health care and legalizing abortion. They called their event the Sacred Faith, Sacred Ohioans, Sacred Freedom Rally at Woodland Christian Church.
I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning.
Through song and speeches, the faith leaders shared their message that Ohioans deserve the right to make their own medical decisions about reproductive health care, including pregnancy and abortion, without interference from judges and lawmakers. As the ballot measure is written, if a majority of voters say yes on Issue 1, it would enshrine the right to one's own reproductive medical treatment, including but not limited to abortion, in the state constitution.
All pregnancies are unique, just like all women are unique. And there are situations in which women should have access to abortion if it is needed to save her life. And so we believe that that is a choice. It's a personal choice between the woman, her obstetrician, her significant other if she has one, and God.
As someone who works at the intersection of faith and justice, I want all people to have access to health and wellness so that all people can thrive, and I won't support a bifurcated system where middle and upper class folks can access health care by traveling out of state or paying more money when hard-living people cannot afford the same option.
Opponents of Issue 1 argue the constitutional amendment will take away parental consent when it comes to abortion and minors. Here's how Ohioans United for Reproductive Rights' Gabriel Mann responded to that.
I'm speaking as a dad. I can tell you that Issue 1 strengthens parents' rights. Families have to be able to take a loved one to a doctor in a time of medical need. If Issue 1 fails, then every family trying to get care for their loved one is going to have to flee the state. Issue 1 does not change Ohio's parental consent law. This entire discussion has been a source of misinformation from the other side who want to distract from the extreme abortion ban that's on the books right now. It has no exceptions for rape or incest. That's what Ohioans should go to the polls on Tuesday to vote for in Issue 1.
Mann also explained why Ohioans United for Reproductive Rights believes reproductive rights should be guaranteed in the state constitution rather than in just a law.
We're establishing a right. That's what belongs in a constitution. This isn't codifying a specific line in the revised code. We're creating a new common sense framework that every reproductive health care policy in Ohio can be judged by. That belongs in the Constitution. This is exactly where this piece of policy should go.
And of course, it will ultimately be up to the voters if that piece of policy does end up going into the state constitution. We'll have your Issue 1 and all the election results Tuesday here on 10 TV. When we come back, we're getting back to my interview with Governor DeWine. Next on Face the State, as the Israel-Hamas war rages on and the destruction mounts in Gaza, Governor DeWine discusses his concerns over potential violence against Ohio Jews and Muslims and a program that aims to make religious institutions and other groups more secure. Welcome back to Face the State. Over the last 4 years, the state has earmarked $26 million in grants to improve security at religious institutions, some schools, and nonprofits in Ohio. The governor's office says a significant amount has gone to Jewish organizations. In light of the Israel-Hamas war, I asked Governor DeWine if there's greater interest in that program and about his concerns over potential violence against Jews, Palestinians, and other Muslims here.
Well, I want to thank the legislature. At my request, they have provided money for the last several years to deal with the hate that we see in society and the small groups. We have some in Ohio. We have white supremacists. We have others. And many times our Jewish friends are those who are targeted. But look, we have to speak out against hate no matter where we find it. The story about the little child, a 7-year-old who was killed because he was a Muslim, you know, those are just tragic, tragic things, and we have to speak out against this. But we've provided money for places of worship to harden the security, to have people there. It's horrible that we have to do this today, that threat is there, but it's a very real threat. You know, if you look at when you talk to the people of national security who are the specialists, one of the things that they say is, you know, with all this conversation going on, very, very concerned about more hate crime, very, very concerned about even a lone person who gets motivated by what they see and what they hear, who might go after a Jewish synagogue. So yes, we're very concerned about it, and this money is available, and yes, we have seen more interest in the availability of this money.
And how worried are you? You touched on it, about the potential for violence against Jews or against Palestinians or other Muslims in Ohio. Yeah,
look, we worry about it all the time. And you know, we try to do what we can do with money and other help. I had a conference call several days ago with Jewish leaders throughout the state of Ohio, just to listen to what their concerns are, but I also had my public safety people on there to talk with them about what is available as far as money, but also who they can contact if they are in fact seeing something.
You had mentioned a couple months ago that you were putting together a crime package. What is in that that would address specifically, gun violence? And we're seeing a lot of it among, young teenagers now too.
Look, we're seeing more gun violence, particularly in our cities, but not just our big cities. We're seeing it in our mid-sized cities as well. The other thing, as I talk to police officers and chiefs of police and sheriffs, that they tell me is we're seeing violence, particularly gun violence, among a younger and younger group of people, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. One of the things that we have done is we put a group together to go in and help local law enforcement. We are a local law enforcement state. We have over 900 police departments in the state of Ohio. But what we can do at the state level is bring in the highway patrol to work with the local police. We can bring and surge in our parole officers. Once someone commits a violent offense in Ohio, they're out on parole, they're not supposed to have a gun. And that's a separate offense. So we can go check, and our parole officers can do that. The other thing we bring in is our liquor control people who go to bars and sit outside bars. And they can spot people when they're walking into that bar who've got a gun, and people who are not supposed to have guns. We've been able to arrest a number of them. So we work, first of all, with the local police. We work with the local mayor. If they want us to come in, we will come in and we will surge those resources in. We can also bring a helicopter in. We've done that, and again, that helps the local police. Many times they don't have a helicopter, and the coordination between that helicopter and that officer up there and the people who are on the ground can make a difference in regard to catching criminals.
Is there anything, in your opinion, that can be done as a prevention measure, in terms of getting to these kids at a younger age to bolster them rather than having them turn to the streets or whatever it might be?
Look, there's no easy approach to how we deal with this cultural problem that we are seeing, but you're right. It's not just about after someone's committed an offense, catching them and dealing with them. Prevention is obviously the most important thing. I've been a big advocate, and we put some very serious money in boys clubs, girls clubs. How we reach out to young people, how we try to get them a mentor. They may not have a mentor in their life. They may not have an adult in their life who, they can role model. These are all very, very important things. So, God bless the boys clubs and the girls clubs, the other organizations that are out there trying to reach these young people. And frankly, we just have to do more of it. I mean, we just have to focus on that.
We're seeing some efforts in the legislature to combat fentanyl and human trafficking, kind of a hand-in-hand approach. How big of an issue do you feel that the human trafficking in particular is, and we're seeing fentanyl across the country?
Well, first of all, human trafficking is a problem in Ohio. It's a problem in every state. We have a number of interstates that crisscross Ohio. That's a good thing, but it also brings more human trafficking. So, great effort. The Attorney General, David Yost, is making an effort in that area. We have local law enforcement. We're making efforts. But I guess my message to the public is keep your eyes open. If you see something that doesn't look right to you, you're in a motel and someone's checking in, and it looks like this guy is a lot older than the young lady, or you're the clerk there, maybe ask some questions.
Everybody's eyes matter.
Everybody's eyes matter. Fentanyl, look, fentanyl is just a huge, huge problem. We all know someone who has had a loved one who has died because of fentanyl. Number one, China continues to ship in chemicals into Mexico that are used to produce fentanyl. The Mexican drug cartels have figured out this is the cheapest way that they can sell their product. They put fentanyl in it. So our border problem, people say, what does our border problem have to do with Ohio? Well, I'll tell you one thing it has to do with that fentanyl is coming right across our southern border. Now, we need to do a lot in regard to law enforcement. Frankly, we need some help, a lot more help from the federal government on the southern border. I have sent the Ohio National Guard down to the southern border on several different occasions. We've sent at the request of states, we've sent the highway patrol down. We're going to continue to help down there as much as we can, but we need a real effort frankly, from the federal government. The other thing that we can do, when you go into a rest area today, you're going to find naloxone. We have made this available. I know some people say, well, you're making that available. Doesn't that encourage more people to take? No, it really doesn't. We're trying to save lives. We're trying to keep people alive long enough so they can kick the habit and become productive citizens again. And they can't do that if they're dead.
We're seeing such growth here in Ohio with business-wise, with Intel, Google, Facebook, and whatnot. And your office has been, working to beef up the workforce for those future jobs. Is Ohio going to be able to meet the demand for that worker of the future? Near future.
When we're talking to companies and urging them to come to Ohio, the final hurdle we have to go over, and the question that has to be answered correctly for them is, will I find the employees here that I need? Sherwin-Williams, when we were fighting to keep them in Cleveland, which we were able to do, the final question was, how many PhDs in chemistry can you produce every single year? So there's nothing more important than our educational system. Every company needs different people at different levels, at different sets of skills. We've really beefed up our career tech. We got more and more kids in career tech today, and there's jobs out there for each and every one of them.
On the flip side, are you concerned about the influx of people, increasing housing costs, transportation demand, and Ohio meeting those demands as the growth continues?
I think that when you create more jobs, when you have companies come in, we just had a company come in that's going to come into Dayton. They're going to make flying taxis. They came out of California, and we're just happy to get them. Intel, we can talk about the Honda battery plant in Fayette County. We could go on and on. Yeah, when you have growth, there are challenges that you face. I've told Jack Marshbanks, who heads up ODOT, Jack, we got to stay ahead of this growth. We can't be in a situation where people can't get to work and where the people who are coming to work get in the way of other people. So yes, we're going to have to build out more in regard to our highways. We have challenges in regard to housing. We have challenges in many, many areas. So yes, there's always another side to what we want. But the alternative is not to grow, and when you're not growing, you're going backwards. So we have to continue to grow. My goal for Ohio is to continue to grow, and we will keep up with the education that we need. We will keep up with the highways we need and the utilities that they need. That all kind of goes with it.
Now, as you know, Election Day is Tuesday. Polls will be open 6:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night. Early in-person voting is still open today. It runs from 1 to 5 p.m. No early voting tomorrow. For a breakdown of what's on the ballot and to find your polling location, you can just text the word VOTE to 614-460-3345. We will send you a link to our story that includes all the important dates, deadlines, and issues. And please keep it here on 10 TV Election Day for all of your coverage and results on the big issues and races. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you next Sunday at 11:30. Have a great Sunday.